Today we're changing the brakes on a Mercedes GLK 250 2014. We're changing the front brakes and rotors. To do this job, you're going to need the following tools: a grip for when you're taking off the caliper bolts, this rubber hammer in case the rotor is tough to get off, breaker bar, since a lot of those rotor mounting bolts are going to be tight, or caliper mounting bolts, I'm sorry. A piston compressing tool, a T30 bit, some brake lubricants, some anti-seize for between the hub and the rotor, some thread lock for the caliper bolts, and brake cleaner to clean everything off, flathead to get the sensor off, a brush to help break away some debris before you clean it. Helps to have some power tools, a needle nose to get that sensor out, and then you'll need a torque wrench since you want to torque everything down to spec. And then you'll also need an E18 Torx X bit. These are tough to find. I got this at Home Depot. Harbor Freight also has them. The caliper slide should get uses a 15 millimeter. I don't have this out, but that's what it uses. It should be torqued down to 21 foot-pounds. The caliper mount uses the E18 that I showed you. I did 110 foot-pounds. Online I saw it should be 133. Now these are just specs I found online. You should definitely consult your owner's manual. I'm not a mechanic. Online it says 133. I use thread locker. 133 seemed extremely tight to me, so I just did 110. That seemed tight enough. Wheel lugs are 17 millimeters, and that's going to use a deep socket. Those should be 110 foot-pounds. And then the rotor mounting that uses that T30, that should be 5 to 10 foot-pounds. It says 5 online. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is jack the car up. I have my sketchy jack right here that I probably shouldn't be using, but it's all I have. And it's on a block of wood on this little rubber mount underneath. So I'm going to jack it up from here, and then I'm going to put some supports on the side. Next, you remove all of the lug bolts using a 17 millimeter. I just used a regular 17 millimeter in a crisscross fashion. I also added some safety support to the side that I'm working on. And I realize this is kind of a sketchy setup, but this is all I have to work with. There are two 15 millimeter hex bolts holding the caliper pins in. I'm gonna now remove them. I'm replacing the pads with these Euro stops. I believe I got them off of Rock Auto. They come with replacement bolts, which is really nice. And then also replacement hardware. So far this kit looks pretty nice. It's supposed to be slightly better than OEM, but I don't really know. I've never used it before. Okay, once these caliper bolts start to get loose, this thing right here will start to spin. So I'm just taking some pliers to hold it while I turn the nut. So I'm working on the passenger side right now, and there is a brake pad sensor indicator on this side. The kit I got comes with a new one, so I'm going to be replacing that. Either way, you have to take it off before you take the caliper off, so you basically just take a flathead and get it down underneath here and just pry that out and get it off to the side. Okay, so I have the caliper off, and next you have to use an E18 E-Torx to remove these back bolts. I had a hard time finding this. I went to Advanced Auto Parts, Napa, and a few other places. I ended up getting one at Home Depot. The kit cost $30. Harbor Freight, I think, sells the same kit for $9, so you might want to just order one off of Amazon before you start this. So I tossed some WD-40 on these bolts just because I know they're torqued down pretty tight. So I'm just going to let that sit for a little bit. Okay, so the caliper bracket is off. I would definitely suggest using a breaker wrench or a long wrench to get that off. This is actually a torque wrench, but it's super long, so it worked well to get that off. Those are on super tight. So next, you're going to want to remove this, which is a T30 bit. So I'm going to remove that, and then I'm going to give the hub a few whacks with a hammer. So whoever worked on this before me put a ton of what appears to be Loctite on the hub and the new rotor. So this thing came right off as soon as I took this bolt off. I didn't have to whack it at all. So now I'm just going to take this off. Before you compress the calipers, you want to remove the brake fluid cap. I'm just going to leave it semi-on so nothing falls in there. If it's at the max, you'll want to drain a little bit out so it doesn't overflow, but it looks like this has some room, so I'm going to try compressing it without draining it. Okay, now I'm going to remove these brake pads from here, and I'm going to compress this, but first, before I compress that, I'm going to clean this really well with some brake pad cleaner and a brush. And I'm going to just spray that off with brake pad cleaner and give it a little bit of a scrub as well, just to clean off anything that I can before I put the new ones on. Okay, so I have this really cleaned, or as clean as I'm going to get it. Now I'm going to put some anti-seize lubricant around this hub, and then I'm also going to compress these pistons using this tool that I got off of Amazon. So I'm excited to use this tool. However, I can't film while I use it because I'm just not good like that. This is the lubricant I'm using around the hub. I'm not sure if it's right, but it's what Google said to do. So I applied the anti-seize around the hub pretty generously. Now I'm taking some rubbing alcohol that I have on a rag, and I'm just rubbing the perimeter of the new one just to get off any manufacturing oils before I put it on. I put the hub on, ensuring to line up this hole with the hole that I need to put the T30 screw on. I'm going to put some thread lock on this screw just to be thorough. Google says this should be torqued to 5 foot-pounds. Other videos just say to make it snug, so you definitely don't want to over tighten this since it's a small bit. So now I'm going to unplug this brake sensor and replace it with the one that came with the set that I bought off of Rock Auto using some needle nose pliers. So now that I have the clips in, I'm going to reinstall the brake caliper mount. So I put thread locker on each bolt, and I just tightened it down so it was secure. Now I'm going to tighten it to 89 foot-pounds.
Do you think you'll finish that?
Okay, so I was trying to figure out where this brake pad sensor went. I failed to look before I took it off. So make sure that you're putting the pad with the hole in it on this end. I made the mistake of not doing that, so make sure that you're doing that and not putting that one on the outside or using both of the outside ones, which is what I did. Okay, I got both of the pads on. I got these torqued down to 89. I'm just going to test them one more time just to be safe. Now I'm going to put this back on. Okay, so now I have this clip back on, the brake sensor wire, and I'm going to torque these down to 25 Newton meters. It says on line 19, But the video I watched at 25, and I figure it's better to be a little bit tighter than too loose, so that's what she said. Make sure you hold these while you tighten it back down so it doesn't spin just like when you took it off. Okay, so online says to do these to 21 foot-pounds, and it says to do the mounting bolts to 133 foot-pounds. I tried to do that and I started to strip the bolts, so I stopped. I have it down to 88. I think that's fine. It has Loctite on it, so I don't want to break the bolt or strip it, so I'm going to stop there. Okay, now I'm putting the 17mm hex bolts back on at 110 foot-pounds.